Hello and welcome to our channel Domaine Sauvage, where we share the story of renovating this 200-year-old abandoned farm in the Dordogne in southwest France. It's been 2 years since we left Belgium and traded our semi-urban life for the countryside. 34 acres of meadows and forests, untouched for more than a decade, with crumbling barns and a farmhouse in need of love, a place once forgotten, but for us the chance to build a new life from the ground up. We're Philippe, Anicia, and our little one is Odin. Our family is also growing with another baby due in November. And of course, our animals keep this place lively. June, our Belgian Malinois, is our loyal guardian, always watching over everything that happens here. Lucy, our oldest cat, patiently tolerates our 2 mischievous kittens we adopted a few months ago. And then there's our chicken flock, who, to be honest, are often the real stars of the channel. Just keep an eye out for them every time Philippe takes out the excavator, and you'll see what I mean. The property itself holds so much character, though many of the buildings still need attention. There's the main house, an old barn with an adjacent newer barn, a well in the courtyard, and 3 smaller outbuildings, one serving as a chicken coop, another 17th century bread oven, and the third soon to be used for wood storage. When we first arrived, the land was wild, hence the name of our channel, a true paradise for wildlife and at the same time a big challenge for us to clear. Still, large parts will always remain untouched so the animals can thrive. We didn't come unprepared. Philippe is a plumber by trade, and together we had already renovated our home in Belgium, where we spent more than 7 happy years and where I worked as a teacher. But eventually we longed for something different. Adventure, more space, a closer connection to nature, the chance to grow our own food, develop new skills and interests, and above all to give Odin, and now our future child, the kind of childhood deeply connected to the outdoors. Compared to year 1, we feel more settled, but there's been no shortage of challenges and problem solving. We're excited to take you along, to share the highs and the lows, and to show you how far we've come since the very beginning. So let's take a look at where it all started. Year 1 was all about clearing the land, cutting back overgrown trees, and making the farmhouse livable while we were still living in a caravan. We spent our days cleaning up and taking on small projects to improve daily life on the property, like clearing out old junk bits in the soil, removing piles of old belongings left behind, treating oak beams in the newer barn against woodworm, tearing out a rotten platform that had become very dangerous in the old barn, securing firewood for our only heat source in the house for the winter, and removing old pointing on the old barn and farmhouse to reveal the beautiful stone underneath. Each of these jobs was part of exploring the property and the buildings, and they helped us shape our vision for what we want to do with the land and how we want to restore and renovate the buildings. A few months in, we discovered one of our biggest challenges: water. The constant rain in what turned out to be the wettest year France had seen in 15 years showed us exactly how water moved across the land. It chose the path of least resistance, running straight through the buildings and accelerating the deterioration of the old barn, which was already in a very bad shape. We are sure that a few more years of neglect would have caused the right part of the barn to collapse entirely. The long-term solution? Dig away the massive amount of soil that had built up against the barn walls, where there was no drainage at all. That same year, we also took our first steps towards growing vegetables, which was a real challenge in such a rainy season, and we welcomed our first chickens, who rewarded us with fresh eggs. Meanwhile, Odin grew from a baby into a curious toddler, and as he grew, so did we. With each job finished, we saw the land begin to transform. What was once an overgrown tangle of tall grass and brambles slowly opened up into a park-like landscape where the trees could finally breathe again. Year 1 taught us a lot. We learned new skills, leaned on each other, connected with our community and shared in their knowledge, and adapted to the challenges of the environment. We learned to see the positive side of every obstacle and turn difficulties into solutions. Philippe's motto of "it is what it is" came in handy because things didn't always go as planned. But we were and still are determined to make the best of it, and to bring this forgotten farm back to life. Year 1 wasn't only about the land and the buildings, it was also about us as a family. Making such a big move came with a mental toll. Suddenly we were in a place where we didn't know anyone, didn't know the surroundings, and carried uncertainty about finances. On top of that, the scale of the work ahead sometimes felt overwhelming. They say change is always good, and we truly believe that, but it's not the easiest path to take. Still, we got through it, and while there are still some tough moments, we know we made the right decision. At the end of last year, we had just welcomed a second-hand dumper to help move the massive amount of soil built up behind the barns. All of it needed to be relocated to the lower part of the land, the spot where we one day will create a pond. We've got the perfect kind of soil for it, a mix of lime and clay, no shortage of water, and the only thing missing is a solid design. It's also part of a larger plan for water management on the property, something we'll be developing over time. We also left you with plans for building a campsite. We had already begun working on permits with our local municipality and were eager to move forward. A campsite had always been part of our dream, not only as a way to welcome people to this place, but also as a source of income. Many of you have asked how we finance this life and the work we do. The answer is simple: we relied on savings for more than a year to cover living costs while we worked on the property and grew our YouTube channel. It was a huge risk, and by last August we were worried it might not be sustainable. That's when we felt we had to look for another source of income, and the campsite seemed like the way forward. But then something unexpected happened. In the following months, our channel began to grow rapidly. That revenue gave us a bit of stability and flexibility, so we decided not to rush the campsite. Instead, we chose to focus on renovations first and return to the campsite plan later, when the time is right and when we can design it properly. For now, our attention is on projects that cannot wait. The first is managing water across the property. We have plenty of it, which is a gift, but without management, it becomes destructive. The excavation behind the barns and along the driveway is part of the solution, and the pond we're planning at the lower part of the land will also play a role. Another critical part of water management is the roof of the old barn, which has suffered years and years of damage. Once the roof is complete, we'll move on to the interior, building a temporary loft upstairs and a workshop downstairs. This will give us a comfortable place to live and work while we prepare to take on the farmhouse, which will need a complete renovation. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me take you through what we've been up to this year and how we've been working towards these goals. We kicked off our second year with our next big investment, an old Thwaites dumper to join the little digger in the excavation. At that time, our finances were tight. Living off savings meant we had to be careful, so instead of a newer model, we chose this old workhorse. It was a compromise, but one we hoped would carry us through the heavy jobs ahead. As you saw earlier, water was one of our biggest challenges, and the only way forward was to dig out the hill behind the barn. This summer, the real work began. With the weather on our side and family visiting to lend a hand, the days were filled with digging, scooping, and hauling away soil. As the hill behind the barn shrank, the mound we call the dam grew bigger, bigger, and bigger. It being our second year here, we had noticed that summers are often the prime time for many things. Not only was it when most of the big outdoor work gets done, since we're completely dependent on good weather, but it's also when family and friends tend to visit, often during their longer vacations. This summer was no different. Family visits always bring helping hands, whether for the work or for spending time with Odin, and for that we're so grateful. They also break up our daily routine. We might not see each other as often as when we lived in Belgium, but when they do come, the time together feels so much deeper. Days are filled with working side by side, preparing meals, having long conversations, and exploring the region. One of the highlights this summer was a visit to the Château de Hautefort, a gem in the area and a backdrop for a lot of movies. These visits from family are not just like a quick afternoon back in Belgium where everyone went home afterwards. Here they become full shared experiences that bring us closer and create lasting memories. Going into September, we had just released our Year 1 recap video. I'd worked on it for 2 weeks, so both of us were really curious to see how it would do. Meanwhile, life on the farm went on. Philippe kept pushing forward with the excavation, and there was still a lot of digging ahead. The old dumper was proving itself, moving tons of soil day after day. With each bucket removed, the cut in the hill revealed new spots where groundwater naturally flowed. To catch it, Philippe dug the first small ditch.
Push it. So it is already filling up with water, which is a good thing because it was always becoming a whole muddy place over here, so that's why the trench is here as well. This will be the place where I'll put a drain.
The cut in the hill also stopped water from flowing straight through the buildings, keeping them dry, which was such a relief and a clear confirmation that taking on these big works were the right choice. This space that's opening up isn't just for drainage. One day it'll also serve as a parking area for the future campsite. And since the only access road had always been between the house and the old barn, opening up a second route here makes it so much easier to maneuver cars, turn around, and reach the courtyard in the front. Autumn was approaching, and with it came the expected return of some rain. To keep the dumper moving, we laid down old concrete plates that had once been part of rabbit cages, making a path across the mud. But constant driving and more rain quickly broke them apart. Still, Philippe wasn't deterred, he soldiered on like a one-man army. We were also lucky to have a few bright days mixed in. Those warmer, sunnier hours lifted our spirits and gave the soil a chance to dry and let us focus on other tasks for a while. As the season progressed, the conditions worsened. The ground on the excavation site held water so well it felt as if we were creating a pond right there. On the bright side though, it proved that the soil could hold water, exactly what we'll need later for the real pond. For now, it made everything a bit harder, with the ground so saturated the dumper carved deep ruts into the paths, making the drive down with every load to the so-called dam a bit of a struggle.
It's getting increasingly more difficult. Here it's okay, you can manage. It's the dam that's starting to get sometimes a little bit dangerous, especially when the dumper is loaded and the weight on the edges. Sometimes it pushes a little bit, and then I have these deep ruts on the sides where I'm hanging a little bit uncomfortable.
And so from time to time he left the dig site to head down, always followed by our chickens, to flatten out ruts and keep the dumping area safe enough to use. While Philippe was making quite some progress, it wasn't without hiccups. First, the dumper got stuck badly one day while climbing back from a load, and for the first time the excavator track came off.
I need to fix it. I've watched some YouTube videos how to do it because this is new for me as well. All right, it is on.
Eventually, Philippe reached the old barn door at the back and made an interesting discovery.
You can see the black or brown layer of soil, and in here you can see a rubble layer, and then you can see the yellow soil. The rubble layer is the layer that used to be here when the barn was just built. So like I thought, it didn't used to be this way. That's just soil that kept adding up, and nobody bothered digging it away again, and they just let it fill. And now you can see as well, the barn is not connected to the hill. When we bought it, it was like this. So what happened is all the water came from the roof because there's no gutters, always in between here, and would stagnate and would push through the walls. And then we also had a spring in the corner and water coming down from the hill, all rushing here. So there was no choice than to just dig it away. And apparently, like I thought, we're just restoring how it used to be. The only thing I'm doing is making it a little bit bigger.
This month was coming to an end, and glad for the progress made, we looked ahead with curiosity about what autumn and winter would bring. We could only hope there wouldn't be a repeat of last year's endless downpours. On that note, it was time to say goodbye to September.
Bye-bye, Mama.
Bye-bye, Odin.
Bye-bye, Odin.
You never really know what you'll find on an old property like this. Even though it stayed in the same family for generations, it was rented out to different people over the last 20 or 30 years. Horses, crops, every family used it differently, and people also left things behind. Some not so pleasant, others pretty cool, like this McCormick tractor from the 1960s. It was missing its front wheels, buried in the overgrowth, and no wonder we only discovered it a year after moving here. With help from family and a good neighbor, we finally pulled it out and brought it down to Claude's workshop. If you haven't met Claude yet, he's our neighbor and a lifelong mechanic. He's been helping us with all things mechanical ever since we arrived, and he'll play a big role in bringing this old tractor and a few other important machines on the property back to life. Over time, he and Philippe have become real partners, always ready to lend each other a hand. The idea of getting this tractor running again and actually using it on the property was exciting. We decided it would be the perfect winter project once outdoor work slowed down and the ground became too saturated and muddy. And that time had come. But finding parts for something this old isn't easy. The best option was to look for another tractor to use as a donor. To our luck, we found one not far from here and brought it down to Claude's. When they inspected it up close, it was clear this tractor was in much better condition. It would be a total shame to strip it for parts. So the plan changed, this would be restored in full, and in the meantime Philippe would slowly gather individual parts for the tractor we found in our fields. Front wheels, a dashboard, fuel lines and other small parts. The idea was simple: get the tractor we just got running properly, learning how everything works, gain experience, and then, once the workshop in the barn is finished, use those new skills to restore the tractor we found. The first challenge sounded simple on paper. Could they even get it to run? You've probably seen plenty of those will it run videos.
And they make it run, but then you don't see anything about it anymore. That's because making the engine run is maybe the easiest part. It is all the rest that is involved afterwards, getting it to run properly, the clutch, the brakes, differentials.
And yes, it ran, but not well. Claude, with his lifetime of experience, could tell right away the engine wasn't healthy. They started testing everything, from spark plugs to engine compression, and bit by bit they narrowed it down and concluded the clutch was stuck. First they tried the easy fix, taking it for a spin to see if they could free it up. No luck. The next step was much bigger, literally splitting the tractor in two. Philippe disconnected everything holding it together, like fuel lines, hydraulics and wiring, before pushing the two halves apart. The clutch came out and the problem became obvious.
We took out the clutch system, which is not good anymore, so it was not stuck together actually, but there was bolts broken and stuff broken. The clutch was well used as well. It's a double clutch. One clutch is for the back, for like mowing equipment and everything that you do, and the other clutch is for driving the tractor. And the clutch for driving the tractor, the plate was very worn.
There was also a massive oil leak where the clutch sits, so they'd need a new seal for that bell housing and of course new clutch plates. Luckily, Philippe found a specialist company in Paris that still relines worn plates, so the old clutch was packed up and sent off. And then it was a waiting game until it came back.
This tree, what's left of it, and then it starts going down to almost there.
November surprised us with what's called l'été de la Saint-Martin, St. Martin's summer. Around the 11th of November, it often brings a spell of warmth and sunshine after the first autumn chills. the perfect conditions for the soil to dry out, and exactly what was needed for the work behind the barn to continue. The last time Philippe was here, he had almost reached the back door of the old barn. Now he has passed it.
I'm so close to breaking through.
Breaking through to the other side might not seem like much, but for us, this was a milestone that brought indescribable joy. Reaching the front after months and months of hard work with two machines that were the perfect match for each other, the rough excavation was complete. The next step was a bit of preparation and safeguarding. Philippe dug a trench higher up on the hill to catch surface water. The idea is simple: divert excess rainwater into the field where it couldn't cause any damage. Whether it would work or not, only the next rainfall would tell. After that came a bit of fine-tuning.
I'm gonna set up my laser, get it adjusted to the right level, and I'm gonna try a little bit of grading with the front blade on the mini excavator.
The goal is to get everything leveled because over time, as newer buildings were added, like this one from the 1970s, they were built at different heights than the farmhouse or the old barn. The overall aim is to bring it all to one level, a base that will work for every building.
Juntje, nog even gewoon halen.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Odin. Happy birthday to you. Ja!
Ja, chocolade, Odin. Voilà. Hier, Odin. Hup. Hup. Hey, June, in. Hup. Beat. Ja.
The rain returned soon enough, and with it came the test. Water began running down the hill and through the trench,
This is the little ditch that I dug on top of the hill. As you can see, it has been working. This is where it pulls a little bit and then goes through in the fields over there and goes away from the parking space. As you can see, nothing remains in it because I didn't dig it like a swale where you want the water to stay. Now I dug it so the water evacuates quickly. In the future, when everything has stabilized a little bit more, we might make it less steep, to put it this way, so the water can remain a little bit longer, seep in and help the plants or trees or whatever we're gonna plant to take up the excess water. But for now, all I want this to do, if it rains, is just take the water and get rid of it.
With the rough part of the excavation complete, it was fascinating to watch how the land reacted now that the soil had been cut back. But it also made clear that we weren't finished. To get through the winter, we needed some temporary improvements. Just enough to guide the rainwater in a more controlled way until we can install gutters, proper piping and French drains. The way the water flows here has a lot to do with the property's position, slightly lower than other houses in our hamlet. There are also natural springs near the barn, one in the corner and another lightly higher up. Both streams flow towards this first collection point. On top of that, when it rains, water runs down from the road and ends up between the barn and the house, combining with all the rainwater from the house roof. All of it converges here and then spreads across the garden, creating a large flooded area. And so Philippe and his trusty digger got to work.
That way is the ditch that I dug, and I'm extending it towards the field. All this water is coming from above the parking space. I made a little ditch and this is the result. So all this water would have normally gone into the parking space, or when the parking space was not there, it would go just straight to the new and the old barn. So there's a lot of water.
Higher uphill, we made an interesting discovery, a series of old pools held back by small stone dams. Back when this was still a working animal farm, these pools were clearly part of a clever water management system gathering excess runoff from higher up. It's a system we'd love to restore one day, and part of that will mean clearing out all the junk that has been dumped here over time.
In total, we have found 3 of these pools on the land already. So it's quite amazing. They had a whole system, I think. Because it would be nice if we could repair this, and maybe this is the ultimate solution to our problem with all the water coming down.
Wat is dat? Pannenkoek. Oh, wat is
Hallo mama.
Hallo Odin.
Mama takoe.
Mama, ook pannenkoek eten.
Papa takoe is hè?
Ja, doe maar nog een keer. Ja, heel goed.
Papa.
Ja.
Ah, dat was het.
Ja, doe maar. Goed? Ja.
Nou, met de machine.
Ik weet het niet.
As winter took hold, the focus shifted to the inside of the old barn. With my dad's help, they began removing the poplar beams that once formed the base of a platform. Renovating this barn is an important step, not only because part of it is in bad shape, but also because we plan to live here temporarily while taking on the full renovation of the farmhouse.
Fantastisch systeem, hè?
The space really opened up, drawing our eyes to the original roof structure with its oak beams, which we want to keep visible when renovating the roof. Seeing the barn this way made us think about its history and how generations before us had used it. Piece by piece, just like with the discovery of the pools uphill, the story became clearer. This was once a small family-run cow farm.
This was the place where the cows were. This is where you saw me destroying the concrete pad, so the cows were in here actually. And then you have these openings, and that's where the head came through. And here is where the feed was. So they were feeding here, and apparently that I wasn't sure about because I'm not a farmer, but while they were feeding, they were probably milking on the other side. In that corner was the cow trough, where there was water for the cows, and most of the time they would have been outside. What they still do here, even during the winter, the cows are outside most of the time, which is nice. So up here was the ceiling, which was very low, and on top of that ceiling was probably the feed for the cows. So they would just push it over, spread it here, and then the cows would be able to feed.
Mama, mama.
Dank je Odintje. Zie je dat?
Hoera, hoera,
Hoera!
hoera, hoera.
Voilà!
Ja.
Het is gedaan! Tjing tjing.
By January, the waiting game was finally over. The clutch plates had returned from Paris, freshly relined, and work on the tractor could pick up where it left off. So let's head down to Claude's workshop, where you'll find two mechanics at work. Claude doing maintenance on his car, while Philippe carefully cleans and prepares the clutch parts. Both pause their own tasks now and then to help each other, a small but constant reminder of the teamwork that's making this restoration possible. Next, they head up to Claude's second workshop for some fine-tuning, an important step to ensure everything works properly. Next up, Philippe is making some precise adjustments, and Claude readies one of the seals to fix the oil leak in the bell housing. This is it. The pieces are finally coming together. But of course, just when the moment to put the clutch back in arrives, the SD card in the camera is full. Panic. We scramble to switch to the camera's internal storage, and in the rush there's no time to fix the settings. The camera captures everything, not just the action, but every setting on the screen. Anyway, better this than no footage at all. So, with the camera rolling in this chaotic state, they begin the work of pushing the two halves of the tractor back together, and let me tell you, it's a struggle. And then the battery starts to blink red. It's almost out of juice. We're filming on borrowed time now, every second counting.
Pousse. Voilà, voilà. Ça c'est dessous les supports maintenant.
Perfect timing. The clutch is in, and the tractor is almost whole again. Then came the careful work of reassembling everything that connects the two halves together, fuel lines, hydraulics, and finally putting the exhaust back.
That's good and sturdy.
With the tractor back on our land, Philippe spent the following weeks giving other parts the same care as the clutch, cutting new seals, swapping the old filter for a new one, replacing the air filter, and adding weights to the front wheels so the tractor stays stable when carrying the heavy mowing equipment.
Okay, done!
It was running pretty well while driving, but starting it remained a challenge. Apparently these McCormicks are known to be tricky starters. Either way, it was time to start it up again, put it to use, and give it some work, just as Claude had suggested. After all, this machine had been sitting idle for a long time, and the best way to get the engine truly back in shape was to run it. This next project stretched out over several months, but February marked the first step of preparation. While the excavation at the back was keeping the barns dry inside, water was still a major issue in the courtyard out front, what we casually started to call the driveway. Because this property was rented out for decades, each tenant adapted it to their own needs. Over time, people added and removed things, leaving behind a patchwork of stones, mismatched gravel, and grass. Add to that years of heavy agricultural machines and tractors driving over it, and the soil had become so compacted that rainwater simply pooled on the surface, taking ages to soak in. On top of that, the levels were uneven, higher near the newer barn, lower toward the old barn and the farmhouse. The result was messy, impractical, and muddy. So tackling this area only makes sense. The goal is to level it from front to back and create a solid base. Let me get into this big plan for our courtyard or driveway. We'll create a circular drive that goes behind the barn, leads to the parking space, and loops back out to the front. A big part of this area will be excavated about 40 centimeters down until the softer soil is reached. That soil will be separated from the stones, then put back and sloped slightly downhill. To improve drainage, we'll add French drains, then lay down geotextile, followed by larger stone, and finally a top layer of gravel. We'd like to add a big tree here and borders filled with plants and flowers. To be able to separate the stones from what was dug out, Philippe built a rock sieve. After doing his usual research, he decided on a 45-degree angle. He had picked up the welding basics from one of our neighbors in town, but welding is really an art. So if you're someone who can weld, we salute you because it's not easy.
It's difficult. It's difficult. It's the first time I'm welding, so it's getting a little bit better. There's still shit, very shit. I'm not gonna show them. But it is getting better, I think.
And slowly but surely, the sieve took shape, ready to be put to work. But this was not the only piece of the puzzle. We had the excavator, which had already proven itself time and time again. Now we had the sieve, a brand new tool to help us move forward. And then there was the dumper. Just as important, but now in dire need of serious attention. If there's one thing Philippe is adamant about, it's caring for his machines. Replacing pins on the excavator, greasing it regularly, checking the oil on the dumper, swapping filters, he never lets things slide. So the dumper acting up wasn't due to a lack of care. The truth is, it was an old workhorse from the 1980s to begin with, and months later, when Philippe opened up the engine, he found out it had probably been running on just one cylinder ever since we bought it. That meant it was only working on half its power. Looking back, it's amazing it lasted this long. What it needed now was not just maintenance, but a full engine rebuild. First things first, take it all apart. The top section with the seat, the hydraulic reservoir, the fuel tank.
It was held up with this little piece of metal that I had to re-weld twice.
All had to come off to reach the engine. From there, it was a matter of working their way down, checking each piece to see what was wrong. It's important to note that the dumper had been modified at some point in the past and not for the better. This Thwaites dumper has an air-cooled engine, but the entire engine bay had been sealed shut, trapping hot air inside and making cooling nearly impossible. So while Philippe worked on the engine, he would also rebuild the back of the dumper, restoring it as close to the original design as possible. As they were working their way down, they discovered that the engine itself wasn't broken, but simply worn to its core. That meant a full replacement wasn't needed, but many parts would have to go, such as cylinders, bearings and pistons. The parts that were still good got a thorough scrub to remove decades of grime. The following weeks was a deep dive into learning about these machines, and combined with Claude's knowledge, each step brought them closer to getting the dumper running again.
So, cylinder housing, pistons done, where the valves get controlled, so the valve cover and everything I have to put back. Everything has been aligned. We're getting there, I'm very happy. Everything is going very smoothly at the moment, so let's keep it up.
Next came the back-end rebuild. Restoring the original design also meant giving the engine proper ventilation and access, letting it breathe the way it was meant to be. Since the dumper was already opened up anyway, he also added a few practical upgrades, a small dashboard with an hour meter and a proper start-stop button.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Look at this. These are the small things that make me happy. It's been a while since I've been in the seat and it feels good.
Then came the time to try and start the engine and listen carefully to the sound it made.
We got the engine to fire up, but it only fired up on one cylinder.
So it came down to fine-tuning the fuel pump and replacing parts on the fuel injectors, and doing this made such a huge difference.
Okay, this is good. That spray is what it should be. And did you hear the noise when it goes open? Oh, yeah, I think I know what was wrong, or at least a part of it.
The next time it started, it just fired up easily. Weeks of hard work, setbacks and small wins had led to this moment, and it gave us so much hope. But then, this happened. Just as everything was finally working, the starter motor failed.
I found a starter that I can use, but I have to build it, and it's 600 to 700 euros, I think. Not too happy about it, and I'm losing a lot of time, and now is the time to dig, like I said. So I'm gonna have a think.
So we ordered the part because we weren't about to give up on the dumper, but the long and uncertain wait was the real problem. Without this machine, projects on the property, like the driveway, the parking space at the back, the drains and pipes, even the barn roof, all risked coming to a halt.
Boom!
After some serious discussion, we decided we would buy another dumper. It was the only way to keep moving forward. Around this time we announced our pregnancy, and I was about 3 months along. We're going to plant a few fruit trees, 2 eating apples, 2 cooking apples, mulberry and a cherry tree. This little project felt extra special. In a way, it was about laying the groundwork so that little by little we could begin providing for our family straight from this land. Ja, rustig, rustig, rustig. Nee, June.
Voilà.
Ah, dank u Odin.
een lange week. Voilà. Oké.
Tommy.
Natuurlijk, kom maar. Voilà. Hoppa. There you go. De goeden.
Hallo. Papa, dan. Kan jij erop, papa?
As our veggie garden took shape, we noticed they didn't seem to thrive in the compost we had used. It quickly became clear that the compost wasn't fully broken down yet, and over the following weeks we added some basic nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, and slowly the plants began to look better and better. This planting season taught us so much, not only through observation, but also thanks to valuable advice from our viewers, which we will take with us into the next season. When renovating, we always try to plan ahead so that things are ready before a project begins, rather than scrambling to catch up later. That meant making space in an area we knew would stay unused for a while to prepare for an important delivery. It included most of the materials needed to renovate the barn roof, like tiles, wood and roof lining. And while the bigger projects were always on our mind, our messy courtyard made sure we wouldn't forget them. The space was still filled with piles of stone, overgrown soil mounds, and things were still muddy. But this is how it would be until the work could continue. They say that sometimes things need to get worse before they get better. In our case, that could not have been more true. As dependent as we were on good weather, with summer easing in, it finally gave us the chance to push forward with our two big outdoor projects. The following weeks were spent digging out the soil, separating it from the stones with a mix of the rock sieve and plenty of manual labor. The sieve got an upgrade too, with sturdier concrete mesh this time, since the original steel grill just couldn't hold up.
Ja, dat zware pillen daar, maar dat is gewoon op de volgende.
Nu uitdraaien.
The door came out of its hinges, probably with the digging going on. And I guess I was really lucky it didn't fall straight on me. And then came the moment to bring home the new second-hand Thwaites dumper, a 2012 model, slightly bigger at 3 tons. Choosing the same brand made sense, since now Philippe knew these machines inside and out, and Thwaites machines have a solid reputation in general. With a bit of basic but thorough maintenance, like greasing and checking oil levels, the dumper was ready, and so work could shift into a higher gear. But then the bobcat decided to protest.
Oh no, there's an empty battery now.
Now, each time Philippe wanted to start work, he had to go through the whole process of jump-starting it first. Still, perseverance is his strong suit, so he ordered a new battery and in the meantime carried on, determined to get the job done. Work on the front side was tied to what happened out back, so first he headed to the back of the barns to finish that part. Months earlier, he had pushed loose soil down to soften the steep slope of the cut in the hill, but over time we noticed it wasn't holding. That loose layer turned into a muddy slide, slowly coming down and actually making the parking area smaller. The untouched earth behind it, however, stood firm, even through heavy rains and winter storms. While the slope will eventually be leveled out more gradually, the loose soil had to go. Luckily, there was a perfect use for it, which I'll show you in a moment. With the fine-tuning and leveling out back done and sifting out front almost finished, we still needed more to raise the driveway to its proper level, and that's where all that loose soil from behind the barn would finally come in handy.
Next week, sadly enough, there's forecasting some rain, so it wasn't going to rain today. No rain.
This year was filled with setbacks and progress, and accepting that everything takes longer than you think, and that's okay. We took the days as they came, and we'll keep doing the same moving forward. The future is looking bright, and we have so much to look forward to and share with you. This winter we'll finally be out of the mud, welcoming our baby and taking on the barn roof and its interior. There will be plenty to keep our hands busy, so tag along and subscribe to follow our progress. We're excited to keep building this life one step at a time and to bring you along for the journey.